If you're a mid-century modern aficionado, you're sure to recognize this iconic Credenza by Young Manufacturing. Even if you're not a mid-century modern lover, how can you not admire the beautiful lines on this piece? It's likely to be the bottom of a buffet. There's discoloration from sunlight exposure, making this project a little different to take on, but with my little helper by my side, I will walk you through the steps. So stripping is really a straightforward process. First off, if you're refinishing the top only, it's crucial to wrap the piece to protect the original finish from the stripper you're going to be using. I avoid using frog tape, which can strip the lacquer on that original finish. Instead, I use Scotch 3M tape, and I will put the link for that in the caption. Like I said, stripping is very straightforward. With the right tools and materials, enough stripper, leave it on long enough to let it work. And my secret to getting the stripper off really with very little effort is using an angled scraper to avoid damage. Again, that link will be in the caption as well. After stripping and after removing any residue with a shop towel, I follow up with acetone and a green Scotch pad to sort of loosen up whatever's left. Once that residue has solidified, I come back in with a carbide scraper, which will allow me to remove more of the finish and, ultimately making the sanding process easier. It allows me to safely sand the veneer with a higher grit like 150. The sanding process is simplified, thanks to these preparatory steps. I've linked the sanding abrasive in the caption as well. So when I was finished, even though the veneer looked pretty uniform, once I start the finishing process and put sealer and lacquer on, the color is going to become more pronounced. So I want to do a test patch to see what happens to each of those areas. And as you can see, to me, there's too much variation. So I'm going to bleach the top to make it more uniform. Another option would have been to tone the entire piece when it was done, but this to me is a really fail-safe. Bleaching is easy, but it may take multiple applications. In this case, I used warm water, a quart of warm water with 2 tablespoons of oxalic acid. After the first round of applying with a cloth, it didn't work so great, so I applied it with steel wood to get into the grain. And then I rinsed it when I was finally finished with water and sanded it again. Some edge banding needed patching. I use hard fill. And there's a kit I highly recommend. It includes an electric knife and so many different colors that really ensure a perfect match to almost any veneer that you might come across. I'm not going to get into the details on using hard fill. I will be posting another tutorial that will get more into the details on that. Back to refinishing the top, when I did my test patch with vinyl sealer, you could see how close it was to the original finish, so no stain here, just vinyl sealer to prep for lacquer, sanding between coats. This process applies to the wood veneer only. The legs would require a different process. You kind of prep the piece for the lacquer using vinyl sealer. I do multiple coats, probably, especially if I'm using an aerosol can. I'll probably do 5 or 6 coats of vinyl sealer, sanding in between with 320 grit. So now that the top has been primed with vinyl sealer, I need to get the original finish in the body ready for lacquer as well. And I do this by taking a green Scotch pad and some naphtha and just wiping everything down to remove any dirt, waxes, buildup, silicone, anything. This is a really safe way to prep the piece for the touch-up lacquer. On this one, I used gloss pre-catalyzed lacquer, again in an aerosol, for a really polished finish. And I also scuff the inside of the drawers and the cabinets using the same green pad and naphtha. So using this process on the interior also gets it ready for the final coat of lacquer, which is going to go on the entire piece, inside and out. On this piece, I used gloss, pre-catalyzed lacquer, for a really polished, finished look. I love combining this mix of restoration and refinish. The final product just blends old and new so beautifully, honoring the original unaltered finish while refreshing it at the same time and refinishing where needed. I'm really thrilled with the result. Stay tuned for more tutorials on using hard fill and other refinishing touches and tips. You can follow me on Instagram for daily updates and helpful content.